How has your entrepreneurial journey transformed you?
I think that it gives you perspective. Sometimes from an outside view, things look like roses until you're in it, and maybe decide that if you get into entrepreneurism, you have to, or entrepreneur, if you decide to be one, you got to get into a business you really love because there are going to be some hard moments, ups
Yeah,
and downs.
definitely some hard moments. Some moments you don't want to keep going. You want to rest. You can't rest sometimes.
Exactly.
You're listening to Entrepreneur Journeys, where I share insights and strategies based on owning and managing businesses while traveling and living on 3 continents. I also interview business owners about their journey, what they learned along the way, and how that can help you with your business growth. For more resources to accelerate your entrepreneur journey, head over to gapologist.com, where I share resources, events, community, and more. I'm your host, Joe Matz. Let's get started.
With us today is Reggie Johnson. He is a podcaster. He's got 2 podcasts. He's got Reg in ATL, that stands for Atlanta. It's Reg in ATL, and also a sports podcast called Just the Stats. Reggie, welcome to the show.
It's amazing being on, Joe. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you here. Yeah, so tell us, where do you hail from today?
The great city of Atlanta, Georgia, man. It's a beautiful place to be. I'm not sure if you ever been to Atlanta before, Joe.
I have.
And you've been all over, man.
Well,
You've been all over. I'm pretty sure you have been to Atlanta.
Yeah, I kind of just passed through Atlanta. I really don't know much about it except my aunt, one of my favorite aunts. She lived in Atlanta for a while and she loved it.
Yes, it's a very, very amazing, a very growing city too, man. It's a
Yeah,
growing city here.
that's awesome. Have you always been in Atlanta?
I was born in Germany. My dad was in the army. We moved back to Alabama, where my mom was from, and I was there for like 5 years or so, and then moved in Atlanta ever since. And that's been since the '80s. So I've been in Atlanta about roughly 35 years.
Okay, that's kind of like your town.
It is absolutely. I love it here.
All right. Now, we are going to talk about your entrepreneurial journey today.
All right, all right, ready to dive into it.
Yeah, man, we'll probably get into some other stuff, but let's start there with this question. When you were younger, my friend, was there any indication that you were going to have your own business?
Joe, I was always interested in business. I've always been a business nerd, which has made everything I've done past that a little easier, right? Because when you're starting anything, it helps to have some kind of a prerequisite of knowledge there. So it was an easier transition. I don't know if I ever aspired to, I want to own X store or X type of business. I don't know if I ever aspired to it in that type of specifics, but I did always have an interest in business. It's something that's been a lifelong interest.
I like the business nerd. I've never heard that
Mhm.
term before. So you studied business, you were interested in business. If a post came up on social media years ago, you would look at it because it talked about business. That kind of nerd.
Yeah, man, I was reading Fortune magazines and Forbes and stuff of that type. I was business books. I was into business books, read a couple Buffett books and stuff of that nature too. So there's always stuff like that I was into. People looked at me like I was 60 when I was in my 20s. People are like, you're crazy. What are you doing? And that's the kind of stuff that really interested me.
Right. Hey, that's great. Some people get into sports. I know you're into sports also. Some
Oh, I
people,
love them.
get into knitting or cooking or something. Hey, you gotta have an interest. Keeps things going and keeps boredom away. Right.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's the spice of life. Give you a little bit of variety there.
Spice of life. Have you ever been bored?
Man, let me think here. Sometimes in my meetings at work, those aren't always, those,
I don't. I'm not
that's
sure
not
that
always fascinating
counts.
material.
I'm sorry. What?
It's not always fascinating material there, Joe.
I think we have to exclude the meetings from work as being a bored zone, a boring zone.
That's hilarious because I'm gonna post this on my LinkedIn here. I'm pretty sure might be some questions about that a little bit later on here.
Yeah, let's not dive into that. Let's keep away. Keep away from that. So what did you first do to earn some money on your own?
Wendy's. That
Wimpies.
was it. Wendy's was my first
Oh,
job. That's
Wendy's.
the only time I was owning. That's the first time I actually had like my own money. I had a job down the street. I used to have to walk to that job. It was like on my street, and I didn't have a car at the time because I started there when I was like 16, and that was my first job. It's my first time making any kind of money on my own. I felt pretty good about it actually.
Yeah, sure. I mean, some of those fast food places are really good for training.
Hmm.
You know, it's a,
I recommend everybody start somewhere, some kind of hospitality job. So like just so you know what the grind is.
yeah.
Um, I wanted the same thing for my daughter. She kind of transitioned out of that now, but I thought it's a good place so you know what that grind is like, you know?
It is a good place. You know, I started in restaurants when I was younger too. And my first jobs were not in franchises, but were in restaurants. And I did everything. I think by the time I graduated college, I'd worked in 6 or 7 different restaurants from being a busboy to a chef's assistant.
Yeah, that's quite the range there, you know?
It was quite the adventure. In fact, I went to school thinking I would own a restaurant. And we were looking
Oh,
at,
okay.
at Mexican restaurants in southern New York, northern New Jersey. Then
That's nice.
something better came along.
That's interesting. Have you ever thought about going back to that, Joe? Like, let's get back to the owning these restaurants. That's a serious business to be in right there, man.
I did get back into it. I ran a restaurant. I was the manager in a restaurant. When I moved back to the U.S., it was a full sports bar, family bar restaurant. And we had 19 TVs, something like that,
Wow.
and a full bar, music on Saturday nights. That was a job. It was a lifestyle, and a lifestyle I had to get out of.
Happy to get in, happy to get out.
Happy to get out. Too many late nights, too much drinking. It was rough. It was rough for a while. The job became easy once I got everything figured out, but the lifestyle,
It never ends, Joe.
oh
Never
man,
ends.
yeah. Yeah, they were fun times, fun times. So you worked in restaurants. Did you continue working in restaurants?
Yes, I want to say that I did that for a while and then transitioned out of that into audio engineering when I had a studio downtown. That was my first kind of foray into entrepreneurism, if I can just make that up there. Is I had a studio downtown and people used to come in and record all kinds of songs, whether it was bands, whether it was rap, whether it was singing. Some person did a spoken word type situation. And I did that for about 4 years and from 2008 to like 12-ish, somewhere around there.
Okay, so you had a studio with all the audio equipment and everything, and people would rent it by the hour.
Yeah, about an hour, about a sessions. I would do like blocks. So I would book out 3 to 4 hour blocks and
Okay.
people would come in and record whatever. The more if the more professional people were, because you have some people who have a song on the radio, so they're very professional. And you have some people where it was more casual for them. And the more professional people would come in knowing what they wanted to do, and it was all business, so to speak. They come in there, they do their whatever they're there to do. And the people that weren't as professional would come in, take pictures of themselves, share it on their social media that they're in the studio and stuff like that. And that was more of a thing for them. But it was pretty fun. It was a fun business to be in. Interesting, but just like you said, very late nights. And you really have to like your job in that business because you're gonna be doing it's gonna get monotonous at some point.
Sure, sure. I mean, even though you have different people going in there, you're still recording. You're still messing with the soundboard and getting things right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Long
work.
hours.
A lot of work. Very cool. And why did you get out of that?
It's an interesting story, Joe. It's interesting.
Hey,
Do we
that's
have
what we're
time
here
for an
for.
interesting story? It's an interesting story. So I had taken my I was out somewhere and the girl I was dating at the time, I had taken her there to just do like one time ever. She wasn't even from the state. She was from Philadelphia. Or Pennsylvania, I should say, not Philly, Pennsylvania. So she calls me randomly one day, Joe, and she says, do you know this guy named Sam Stone? And he owned like a bigger building like next to mine. You know, I was renting the studio actually from him. So I would pay him, rent there for my space that I was renting. And it was very intriguing to me because I'm like, you're not even from the state. How do you even know this guy's name? Or, it's very intriguing. I'm like, yeah, what's going on? She's like, well, he's on the news right now and they're shutting down his place. And of course, that means they're shutting down my place with it.
Ooh.
So I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I get on the, I still have that news clip saved, by the way. I went and found a news clip and I could not believe he's on television. We were having a lot of like, the bigger building that was next to mine used to have a lot of parties and events, video recordings. They even had wrestling matches. They would have all, it was like a mixed use business for him. And they could go very long nights and they can get very loud. And I don't know if he had like so many noise ordinances or anything like that, but eventually the city came and was like, you're going to have to shut down. You're breaking too many rules. And Sam, I see him on there and he's saying stuff like this is a family establishment and all that stuff. And I'm thinking at the time, Joe, like we have all kinds of raves and stuff there and parties. Like this is pretty interesting. So that's what ended up happening. It ended up getting shut down in a very creative fashion there.
Creative. Yes, creative. All of a sudden, I don't have a location.
I don't have a location anymore. And I find out from somebody who's not even from the state. You know,
Right.
it's very weird.
Wow. All right. So then what? So that's a little bit of a crisis mode, right?
Yes. Yes. That was 2012. And then I moved to Mississippi to start the business 2013. I want to say 2013.
Okay. Okay. Now you're already accumulating a lot of entrepreneurial experience on your journey.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. And what are you doing now?
Now I work at a place that I really like. I do events at a place called Bold Events. I really like working there. It's nice. He's very interesting. When I first came back, I from Mississippi, because that's when I had my computer business in Mississippi. When I first came back from there, I had looked for a job randomly, like I needed, because I didn't want to take money out of my business. It had only been open maybe a year and a half, 2 years or so. That was my business. My partner was still there in Mississippi running it. At the time, my daughter was going through high school and I wanted to get back for some of her high school years. And I had the plan to kind of go back to Mississippi. So I wasn't looking for a serious career or anything. So I'm like, I'm gonna go back to my business. I didn't really care that much. I started this place and it ended up being a kind of a wonderful journey in a sense that the most exciting stuff would happen. I'll give you one example is because I managed events there. And it's two things actually, Joe. So the first thing is the money was just so, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how much people were paying for events. Cause you know, you go to do at a job for events, they can be as little as like $5,000 or so. But this place, when I was going, I was like, some of these events are like 10, 15, 20, $30,000. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that people were spending that money for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And it got increased from there. But what really sold me was I was doing an event randomly, and it was at East Lake, which is a golf place here in Atlanta. Doing an event randomly at East Lake, and Tiger Woods just walks up, taking swings. And I thought, this is the best day of my life here, Joe. I cannot believe Tiger Woods just randomly walked up here. Now, when I had all of my desk jobs that I've had in life, that's never happening, Joe. Tiger Woods isn't walking into my office with his key card there, sitting down at the cubicle next to me. That's not how life had gone up to that point. So that was so fascinating that I could make money and still have something like this happen. And that wasn't the only time something like that happened. It's been several times that stuff like that's happened. So that was nice, but I never viewed it as like, I'm going to kind of stay in this business. It was never something like that. I was always planning to go back to my computer store in Mississippi at some point because my partner was still there. So it ended up being very interesting. Then I started after working there for maybe a couple years because I did radio in Mississippi and I wanted to get back into radio. So I'd worked there for like 2 years and kind of missed it. And I talked to my friend, Nick, and he said, I want to kind of get back into radio. He's like, oh, you should start a podcast instead. So then I started the Reggie ATL podcast. Past that, I started doing investing, which completely changed my life. Like it was over at that point. Like once I started investing, stock market investing, not like real estate or anything like that. I started investing in the stock market and things have been very different. We'll kind of talk about that down the line here in some other, as further in the show, but it became very eye-opening to me, you know, the amount of opportunity that there is out there and how you can kind of craft the life you want and still not be poor because, you know, it's hard to kind of find the two, right? Sometimes between something that you really want to do and poverty. Like I can say, hey, I'm just going to be an artist and sit on the beach all day and just draw people as they walk by. I hope I sell something. I don't know if I'm going to be able to retire off that. If I was decided that was my job, my career choice, you know?
Right. Would you like to get in front of more of your ideal clients and at the same time build your brand and create evergreen content? Well, you can do that with podcast guesting. This very moment, you're listening to a podcast that may have been published today or 3 weeks ago or 3 years ago. In a very real sense, you're engaging with the speakers, hopefully enjoying yourself and learning something new at the same time. And you're getting to know the guest and how they help their clients, their customers, and the problems that they solve. You may even be their ideal client and want to learn more about them and download one of their free resources you can find in the show notes, or maybe even become a client of theirs. See, when you're a guest on a podcast, you will enjoy that same kind of engagement. It is perhaps the easiest, most cost-effective way to get in front of new audiences. Learn how you can be a guest on the right podcast and engage with your ideal clients with the free resources available at gapologist.com. So you started the podcast Regin ATL. What's that about?
Initially, it was literally just me wanting to get back into doing some sort of broadcasting of some nature. And I had started with my friend Nick, because I had worked with him at that same place that got shut down. I worked with him there because he was the camera guy there and I was the audio guy there. And that's how we kind of met. So I just started going to his house and we'd sit on his couch, and I still have like the pictures from that day. Joe, seems like the prehistoric age.
What, maybe a couple years ago, maybe?
Yeah, it was us holding like microphones. This was actually 2016 or so, 2016.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I'm sorry. This was 2018. This is 2018, Joe.
Oh, that's like forever ago in the podcasting world.
Yes, it was. And it looks like it in the pictures. Like we're both sitting on his couch, hand holding our microphones, looking completely homegrown there. Now before you get all this. So now with the way that streaming has occurred, it makes it a little bit easier, to do it versus trying to do it that way. And I was more of an audio guy. I wasn't really into video. I just started doing video, Joe, not too long ago, like maybe like 2 months ago.
Oh, wow.
I just started actually entering into like the video age of the show. But I've had a lot of fun doing it. I've been able to talk to a ton of different people about a wealth of topics. So it's been very, very fun.
Yeah. Now, I think a lot of podcasters do begin with audio. But there's a lot of consensus out there that you get into the video, you've just got one more outlet. You've got one more way to share what you're doing for people who want to watch you on video.
Correct. And I don't see why not at this point, right? Like you might as well give it a try. You don't have to start with the best of camera. If you look at people's videos and stuff on YouTube, they're all over the place. So there's a place for you. And I'm now more so in the why not part of life. There's no reason to not undertake it,
Yeah, I love that, Reggie. You come to a certain realization, I think, that it doesn't have to be perfect.
Correct.
You just start doing it, whatever you want to do. I mean, the people who are excellent at what they do, they didn't start out excellent.
Right.
They started out with maybe curiosity, maybe some interest, and it grows. It just grows, and you get more interested, you spend more time, you do more research, you integrate more, and, before you know it, you start getting really good at whatever you might be doing.
It's the practice, Joe. It's the practice. And I can't say that enough. Every show I treat, I get to. It's a practice show. Might be better the next show. It's a practice show. Might be better the next show. I'll be better the next show. That's something I've constantly told myself. I'll be better the next show, and on and on and on.
You just gave me an idea, Reg. I should go back to my first, 4 or 5 episodes, pull out some clips, and say, this is how it all began.
Right. If I was to show my pictures, man, from when me and Nick were on his couch with those handheld mics, people would be like, wow, it's possible for anyone.
That's right. And that's the message, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's the message. I co-host a podcasters group, and today we were talking with some folks. They're timid about getting in front of the camera, about getting on podcasts, kind of like the same fear of public speaking.
Yes, I can see that.
And, the message is just get started. We'll put together an outline. We can practice and then just get started, because you're not going to be excellent. You're not going to be where you want to be. But if you wait 3 months to get started, you're still going to be at the very beginning in 3 months. It's like riding a bicycle, I told him. You could look at YouTubes and take training and watch people on bikes, but until you get on the bicycle, you're just not going to learn.
Right. You're 3 months away now from learning what you would have learned 3 months ago.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Get on and ride. That's what I say.
So it's so true.
Yeah. So now you have another podcast also where you talk about sports.
Yes, I love that. I love doing that show. And that's actually the show that I'm doing more videos for. I started recording videos for my Reggie and ATL show, which I very much am excited about. I've gotten a few more videos there. My sports show, Just the Stats, started putting videos on the YouTube page for that maybe like 2 weeks ago or so there, Joe. So that's been amazing. My partner there, Eugene Morton, he has been an amazing partner on that show. I started that show about a year after I started Reg and ATL. So Reg ATL started like in 2018 and the other show started 2019. And it's been nice because he's been a consistent partner. I don't know if you've ever tried to have a consistent co-host, but it's not easy. Because working with people's time and stuff like that, they might have time available, not at the same time that you have time available. So it's definitely not easy to do. But that show's been amazing. I didn't want to put sports on my show because it's so specific, that either you like sports or you don't.
Right.
It's kind of like politics, right? Like either your show's going to be about politics or it's not. I do a couple of episodes of politics a year because I am a politics nerd. So I like talking it with the guy that I usually talk it. We just love talking it. But it's so polarizing, Joe, that I can't really have my show be about it because people might listen to your politics shows. Now they hate everything else you've ever done in life. So it's kind of like, I don't, sports was the same way. I wanted to have a situation where I could have a show that's specifically about sports.
Right. Right. That makes total sense. And, on this show, we avoid 3 topics, religion, politics, and a third one. I forget.
Those are the most important too. You started with 2 great ones, I tell you that. You can stop there, Joe, and he's pretty good on most other subjects.
Sports are okay. That's all right. We'll talk sports a little bit. It's fascinating, your journey, and you've moved around physically to different states. You've had different businesses, but it all does seem like there's a theme there.
I would say that the theme is mostly trying to find. I never wanted to have one source of anything. So I like to have different irons in the fire, so to speak, if that's how that saying is. I want to have different things that I've always been doing. So I've always been on the path of doing a couple of different things at times. And I've always, throughout my life, there's been a constant business themes underlying. So when I was in the studio, I was in the audio business. And that's kind of what I was dealing with. The reason I like the events business right now is the business portion. I don't really know much about actual events, but I do know how to talk to people. I know how to manage people. I know how to look at the business aspect of it.
Right.
And I feel like that's been a constant, my North Star, so to speak, no matter what I get into, because there's a business for everything, whether it's corn or whether you grow tomatoes, there's a business to that.
There's business to it, and there's people to it also.
Yes.
You might sell to a corporation, but you're really selling to a person.
Correct.
It comes down to
overstate that enough, I should say. It's very true.
Go ahead.
I can't overstate that enough. That's very, very true.
Yeah. And if you're good with relationships and you understand some business, you have some common sense, which is very important. You can apply that. Those are skills that are transferable to many situations. I used to run conventions in Brazil. And I would bring the people. I would go from renting the location to bringing in speakers from the U.S. to selling the tickets. And that was an amazing thing. Thank God I had some good people helping me out.
Right. Very important.
Yes, very important. Very good, very good. And so, earlier on in the show, you mentioned investing. And you got into investing. And that sounds like it was a big thing for you.
It changed my life, absolutely.
How did it change your life?
From a financial perspective, the most. I went from I wasn't really because I struggled more financially, I would say, early in life, because I had my daughter very early. I had her when I was like 20, 21 or somewhere like that. So it was a struggle in the beginning. There's a struggle, a big financial struggle there. And once I got the business in Mississippi, it got a little bit better for sure. And I was kind of like doing my own thing. You made your own schedule. But it was still, I'm there 6 days a week. I tell people in the very beginning, you own a job in the very beginning. You may own a business, but you own a job.
Right.
You're going to be there doing everything. Like you said, the sports, you're there doing everything. So when I started investing, it wasn't just money that changed my life. It changed my perspective in life. My perspective in life changed because it's something that's separated from any other thing I do. I can invest in the stock market, and then I don't really have to worry about where my money will come from in the future. I'm not necessarily going to dump in everything into it, and I don't recommend it. But the fact that you could do something, see it grow. I had a situation where I had started with like $30, Joe. You could start with any amount of money. And it could be intimidating to see all the money. But I started with like $30, and it made me $36. And I was like, wow, I just gained 20% on this. Like, that's crazy, doing absolutely nothing. It just gave me 20%. So I started to think in my head at that point, what if I invested 300? I would have had 360. If I had invested 3,000, I would have had 3,600. So I'm thinking how it can grow. So I started that way and did pretty good. Had a horrible last year, did very bad. And I feel like you got to tell both in that story, because a lot of people, just like owning a business, there's similarities there in owning a business and people from the outside being like, man, that's great. You own a business and everything. And you're thinking, man, I don't even get to see my house anymore now that I own this business. I am never home. It's not all it's cracked up to be for everybody. So investing, I would say, is the same thing, but it was very good for me. And it changed my perspective on things.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of people had a bad year last year.
Yes.
Yes.
It was not great. The worst year I've had since I've been in it.
Yeah. Hopefully it's coming back.
An amazing year this year. I'm back at it, Joe. It's an amazing year this year.
Perfect. That's great. That's good to hear. So, Reggie, we are at the point in this podcast where we're going to get into the lightning round questions.
All right.
Are you ready?
Ready. I am ready, Joe.
All right, let's go.
So you said 1 to 2 words answers. Like, am I limited to like 5 words? Do I get a sentence? Do I get
maybe a couple sentences.
Okay. I think I can accommodate that.
That would be great. How has your entrepreneurial journey transformed you?
I think that it gives you perspective. Sometimes from an outside view, things look like roses until you're in it, and maybe decide that if you get into entrepreneurism, if you decide to be one, you got to get into a business you really love, because there are going to be some hard moments, ups and downs.
Definitely some hard moments. Some moments you don't want to keep going. You want to rest. You can't rest sometimes.
Exactly.
Okay. What most surprised you as a business owner?
How long it takes to get people through the door. I thought I opened my shop and they'll just come running in, Joe, and that's not how it works. And word of mouth is golden.
Yeah,
it's golden.
Okay. Awesome. What unexpected challenges have you had to overcome?
The self-doubt in the early days of thinking like, is anybody going to come in? I've done all this work, and eventually it does work out if you keep going, though.
Persistence. Got to be persistent.
Persistence is key.
Okay. And Reggie, what book has made a big impact on you, and who would you recommend it to?
Who Moved My Cheese? Spencer Johnson, the book that I reference a lot of times in my life. And I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's one of the classics, man. I have not heard about that book for a long time.
It's a great book, man. I really enjoy it.
It's still valid today. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah, Spencer Johnson, man.
What advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur in your industry?
Prepare for the long haul, I would say. Prepare for the long haul. The persistence that we just talked about is golden. And if you get into a business that you really like, it won't be any issues with that.
Right. You've got to be ready for the ups and downs.
Yes.
And when you're up, you've got to work. And when you're down, you've got to work.
Yes. And keeping that attitude right there is what you
That's right. Because having your own business, Reggie, I think you'd agree with me. You're not looking for money this week.
Exactly.
You're looking.
It, but you're not, but you're not getting it back.
You're looking for it, but it ain't there.
Exactly.
It's for the long haul. It's to build a lifestyle, to take control of to be the captain of your own ship, if you will, and take control.
I agree.
That's what it's all about. For me, freedom is very important.
Same, man. That's why I think I love the stock market thing so much, because the amount of freedom it can give, but that pendulum swings both ways, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not a stockbroker here. Believe me, it swings both ways.
So I'm thinking of you as like Mr. Atlanta, because you've been there so long.
Yes.
If I come down to Atlanta, man, we get together, are you going to show me the good places to go?
Oh, absolutely, man. We'll come down here. There's a lot of changes taking place in Midtown right now, man. Just let me know when you come down, man. We'll go. I'll show you a few places. It's an up and coming city, man. That seems to have been perpetual the last few years.
Yeah, I hear great things about Atlanta, and it's not so far from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Not at all, man. My grandmother's in Raleigh, Durham, so I was just went to see her a couple months ago.
Hey, next time you're up here, give me a ring.
No doubt about it, man.
And now, we've been talking about getting together here, but if the folks listening to us today want to know more about you and want to get in touch with Reg, how do they do that?
They can get in touch with me through LinkedIn. Reggie J is my profile on there. And you can go to my show on reginatl.com or justthestat.com.
Okay.
Either one of those will get you to the shows.
Yeah, and we'll have all of that information in the show notes. Reggie,
Amazing.
It has been a pleasure and a very enjoyable conversation today.
Always a pleasure when we talk, Joe. It's been a couple months, but we're back at it like it never left, man. It's amazing. I see you pretty good at what you do there, Joe.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time and coming on the show here today.
You got it, my friend. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good one, man. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
All right. See you later, buddy.
Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Journeys. Remember to subscribe so you catch all the episodes, and check out the show notes for any free giveaways or gifts that were mentioned during this show. Entrepreneur Journeys is brought to you by Apexible, providing the insights, tools, and transformative structures to help you reach your business summit. I'm your show host, Joe Matz, and until next time, I hope your journey is filled with breathtaking views and successful outcomes.